Today on Nostalgia Trip, we're going down the weird, winding, Dadaist road of Animaniacs. This was a true gem in the 90s and a Saturday morning staple at my house. But upon reviewing this, I realized that this clever, well-executed series also set me up to question authority while teaching me the rules of comedy. So get the baloney out of your slacks and hit that subscribe button and bell. I'm Chris Carr, and I want to talk to you about what made the original Animaniacs so great. Before we dive in and get zany to the max, I want to give a shout out to all of our donors on Patreon, especially our super nerd sponsor of the day, Axel and Aries. Thanks to heroes like them, I get to keep talking tunes of days past with y'all. So thank you so much. If you want to pitch in, head on over to our Patreon page and see if a donation tier works for you. All right, on to the Warner brother and the Warner sister. As anthology cartoons were moving out of the limelight in the 90s for more story-oriented series, Animaniacs managed to step in as this sort of hybrid show. The violence and humor of Looney Tunes mixed with modern satire. The show never shied away from lampooning politicians, current affairs, the film industry, or adding in adult humor to keep the grown-up audience they were also inviting to watch enticed. Who better to hold the interest of parents than a trio of little stinkers who like to stir the pot and come after those in power? Animaniacs was a musical comedy cartoon that ran from 1995 to 1998 as part of the Kids' WB afternoon block and was produced by Hollywood bigwig Steven Spielberg. It had 99 episodes and a full-length feature, Wacko's Wish, that acted as the show's finale. Basically, the tune played out like a variety show. We had a cast of characters who would have their own mini-episodes within the episode. It's hard to boil down just what made this show iconic because there's honestly so much to talk about. The songs, the catchphrases, the absolutely inappropriate humor that kept my parents watching alongside me.
You're misinterpreting.
No, this is misinterpreting.
This is misunderstanding.
Let's break down all the fried gold packed into this irreverent show. First of all, that theme song is an earworm. It sets you up for not only knowing everyone's role in the series, but gets you pumped for just how wild this show is going to be. This is not your run-of-the-mill Saturday morning cartoon. This is going to be packed with politics and pop culture and a unique point of view. One of the things that really made these songs sing is the level of professionalism and quality dedicated to crafting them. A 35-piece orchestra and 7 composers were contracted to write all the original scores for the show's entire run. This made production costs skyrocket naturally. On top of these songs, the animators behind these sequences would often have a higher cell count to make the characters move more fluidly. This means animators had far more movements to animate. But hey, the creative team was all about that quality. And it was noted. The show won both an Emmy and a Peabody. This level of care and craft is something that makes me long for these old cartoons. I mean, how many animated series now skip frames, reuse footage, or just downgrade sequences to cut corners and costs? Oh, Steven Spielberg, thank you so much for sticking to your guns on quality. Backtracking to the songs themselves, we absolutely have to talk about 2 iconic numbers. The first, Yakko's World. This is the song that taught us every single country on the globe. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too. Hey! This song came about when one of the show's writers was helping his son with his world geography homework and realized he could make this rhyme scheme. But what's even more incredible than rhyming all of these different countries is that Rob Paulsen, who voiced Yakko, was able to sing the song in one take, y'all. This is why Rob is in all your cartoons still. Gosh, what a pro. Another classic is Wacko's America Song, which is 100% how I learned the state's capitals. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio. There's Montgomery, Alabama, south of Helena, Montana, and there's Denver, Colorado, under Boise, Idaho. The Warner siblings weren't always going to be the unknown dog species we've come to know and love, though. Initially, Animaniacs was going to be a plucky duck of Tiny Toons vehicle that would center around him and his brothers. However, WB thought with Donald Duck, DuckTales, and Darkwing Duck on air that perhaps Disney had cornered the duck market, and they pivoted.
And those, what are they?
I don't know.
Yakko's fast delivery and puns are based on the comedy stylings of Groucho Marx. Wacko is the Harpo of the group, with a voice based on Ringo Starr, and little sister Dot rounds out our trio. Dot's full name is Princess Angelina Contessa Luisa Francesca Banana Fana Fobesca III. The Warners were created to be the Mickey Mouse equivalent of the studio. But unlike that people-pleasing mouse, these creatures are constantly locked in the water tower because they're just out of control. The Warner siblings' function was to tie the show together, often introducing the other characters or appearing in their skits. Like the Warners, these other characters still took pot shots at the establishment, whether it be parodying cinema, making jokes about the film industry itself, or inserting social commentary about everyday life. You had Slappy Squirrel, a retired animal actor who was rough around the edges, and her naive nephew Skippy. Slappy was this sassy old broad who'd hit people with her purse, and she'd compare folks to characters she'd worked with in the past. like telling Luke Perry he reminded her of a mature Johnny Quest. Rewatching the show, all I want to be is Slappy Squirrel. She does not take shit from anybody. The Goodfeathers were based on the Goodfellas and other mob characters that Scorsese films were known for and explored that sort of mob trope with pigeons. Our characters here were Bobby, Squid, and Pesto. These characters were based on Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci, respectively. The show is so intrinsically tied to its Hollywood setting. The Warners, Slappy, even the Goodfeathers with their odes to Scorsese were attacking the studios from the inside, which gave this series this incredible meta sense of humor. Their existence is fueled by Hollywood, and they aren't afraid to mock Tinseltown, studio execs, or critics. Instead, they live for it. Now, aside from the siblings themselves, I'd have to say that Pinkie and the Brain were perhaps the most iconic duo to arise from the Animaniacs. Pinkie and the Brain were based on WB animators Eddie Fitzgerald and Tom Milton. Fitzgerald is responsible for Pinkie's narfs and egads, which are phrases he would actually regularly use around the Tiny Toons office. These two mice were genetically altered test subjects with differing desires. Pinkie just wanted to make his best friend Brain happy, while Brain had his mind set on global domination. These two, of course, would get their own spin-off series. I mean, seriously, how often do you ask someone, "What do you want to do tonight?" and they respond, "The same thing we do every night, Pinkie."
Try to take over the world.
Fun fact! Maurice LaMarche, who voices Brain, is also the one who does all of Wacko's big ol' burps. Another classic pairing was Buttons the dog and Mindy. Buttons was constantly stressed out and terrified that his little kiddo Mindy was going to get herself killed since she was always running around, completely unaware of the danger she was encountering. Also, why did her mom just let the dog raise her? Why? What free-range hippie nonsense is this? Ugh. To this day, though, I still do say, "Okay, I love you, goodbye," when hanging up the phone. The show was also packed with sexual innuendo. The most iconic, of course, was Yakko and Wacko ogling classic 90s blonde babe Hello Nurse, aka Heloise Nurse. What made this character work, though, is that Hello Nurse wasn't just some big-boobed bimbo. We learn that she is excellent at her job, that she's a downright genius, and that she's well aware of her looks, but doesn't coast on them. It's other people's inability to look past her beauty and note her academic and industry accomplishments. She's an awesome character! A less effective sexually charged character was Minerva Mink. Minerva was created with the intent of flipping the script on the classic Tex Avery wolf, who would go wild when he saw beautiful women. When Minerva sees a hot guy, she basically spasms and then melts into a puddle. Her role was minimized, though, due to her sexual nature. So many people I talked to about this show told me how I had to talk about Minerva, how she was such a huge part of the series, and that's what they remember most, this horny little squirrely-looking lady. This is why I love these nostalgia trips so much, though. Our memories aren't accurate. Our memories aren't the truth. While so many remember Minerva vividly and remember her as this integral part of the show, the Mink actually only had 2 solo episodes. Meet Minerva and Moon Over Minerva. The rest of the time, she's typically relegated to making cameos or appearing in the background. Other characters included Rita and Runt, a cat and dog duo, with Rita voiced by the incomparable Bernadette Peters and Runt by VO legend Frank Welker. Having Peters on the payroll back in the 90s was yet another reason why this cartoon's budget was ballooning. Welker was a staple in the series, though, and in voiceover in general. He provides the voice for WB security guard Ralph T. Guard and the weird and wonderful Chicken Boo. Ugh, Chicken Boo. Chicken Boo is one of my favorite bizarro characters to come out of this show. He was a giant chicken who would disguise himself as a human and always excelled at whatever human occupation he tried his hand at. Wing at? Claw at? What are chicken hands? Chicken Boo and the general zany humor stylings of this show lead into this sort of Dadaism, an art movement that's characterized by being deliberately nonsensical, irrational, and negating traditional artistic values. A sort of go for the fifth thing you think of when it comes to joke writing, with a weird, hard left turn to take. This humor styling has had a huge resurgence, especially among millennials, leading to a sort of neo-Dadaist approach to humor. I mean, look at almost everything we see on Adult Swim. It's all an exploration in absurdism that is often meant to deliberately baffle the viewer. Absurdist humor is meant to express the disillusionment one feels, typically towards the establishment. This rewatch made me realize just how much Animaniacs asked me to challenge the establishment, even as a young viewer. The Warner siblings are always punching up, which is what you want to do in comedy. They're always coming after the executives and the bigwigs on the Warner lot. Long before Tina Fey and 30 Rock were taking shots at the absurd bureaucratic nature of television production, the Animaniacs were openly mocking the very people producing their show. Hollywood, celebrities, and leaning hard into just how much Bill Clinton loved playing the saxophone. Like, Bill Clinton showing up in this blew my mind as a kid. This was my John Mulaney, his favorite fruit is fries, oh my gosh, moment that made this politician seem just so stinking cool to me. Before Jack Black as Dewey Finn pretending to be Ned Schneebly told us that we need to stick it to the man, the Warners told us to question authority and follow the beat of our own drum. The WB siblings were punk rockers guised in slapstick and vaudevillian antics. Even their gag, The Wheel of Morality, was a stab at the FCC's absurd TV guidelines that said children's programming needed to have moral and educational values. When Wacko and Dot talk about how they hate this segment and don't want to do it, they ask, whose stupid idea was this? And when Yakko says, a Fox executive, they immediately pivot, acting like it's a great idea so they don't get yoinked off the air. That self-awareness, that meta-humor, the social commentary were what set this show above the rest. We wanted to hear more from these self-referential smart alecks because punching up is always the way to go in comedy. We can relate to that. We're not part of that top-tier establishment. The adult humor was what really drew in the wide array of Animaniacs fans. Nowadays, cartoons are incredibly targeted at a specific demographic. Yet Animaniacs was writing for everyone, providing slapstick for the kids, yet still delivering jokes like the infamous fingerprints gag.
No, fingerprints.
I don't think so.
And they got away with it because they were aware of walking that edge, and they just leaned hard into it. Yakko would deliver a well-timed, well, good night, folks. This was another self-referential line implying, hey, maybe this is the innuendo that gets us canceled. In a time that's just teeming with cancel culture, it's fascinating to watch something that dares to ask to be canceled. Not because it's going for the low-hanging fruit or pushing the envelope for the sake of pushing the envelope, but because it wants to stay true to its comedy stylings and promise to the audience that this is a show for everyone that's unlike anything else you're gonna watch. Animaniacs is the gold standard of how a cartoon can be funny and fun for kiddos, yet not be dismissive of their intelligence. A show can be clever and irreverent, but keep the young audience part of the conversation. And watching it as an adult, you can't believe what you were watching with your parents. It's so gratifying to go back as an adult and explore some of these little references and jokes that none of us would have ever picked up on while watching it the first time through. I encourage you to go back and see how the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister don't just make you laugh. Look at who and what you're laughing at because of them.
If at first you don't succeed, blame it on your parents.
How deep?
I don't know about you, but I'm touched.
In the head.
Of course, these are just my thoughts on Animaniacs. What I want to know is, what do you think of the OG show? Who are your favorite characters? Hit me with your hot takes in the comments below. If you liked this video, give it a like and click to the left for more nostalgia trips. Thank you once again to all of our donors on Patreon, and thank you for watching. Until the next detour, we'll see you, Space Cowboy.